Good evening. My name is Mike Ambrosino, and tonight we're going to follow Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, which is a very large conglomerate made up of companies including Geico, Heinz, Dairy Queen, and many, many other countries. He's a self-made man and an investor, and his net worth is, at the very least, $50 billion. I don't think many people truly understand how much money that is. So in order to give you a better picture, let me entertain you with an analogy presented by astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. And he determined that when he's walking down the street and he sees change on the ground, that he'll only bend over to pick it up if it's at least 25 cents. Because he leaves the dime, he leaves the penny. It's not worth his while. He wanted to do the same ratio for the likes of Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, and he came to the conclusion that they would only bend down to pick up the money if it was at least $45,000. So if there's $40,000 on the ground, he'd be like, I'm too busy to pick that up. Somebody else get it. So that's how much money we're talking about here, and how much money he's accumulated over time. And if we follow Warren Buffett's educational pathways, his methods and techniques for value investing, and his advice on the psychological aspect of investing and emotional stability and confidence, we can also achieve above average market returns as opposed to, let's say, investing in the S&P 500 and getting an 8% return every year. We're striving for more than that. So let's begin with how he started and what his education, backgrounds, and choices were. So Warren Buffett started at age 11, like all successful people. They started at a young age. And at 11 years old, he started reading books on investing, and his father was an investor and a person in finance. And he spent a lot of time reading. He ended up going to college at the University of Nebraska and graduated at 19 years old, so that was very early. He immediately applied to Harvard to enter their MBA program, but was denied. It was then that he read what he considered his Bible and the best investment he ever made as a person, which is The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham, who would eventually become his mentor and professor at Columbia University. On the other hand, the gentleman that I interviewed is a Berkshire Hathaway Class A shareholder and a huge Buffett enthusiast. His dog's name is Buffett. He claims that purchasing Warren Buffett's annual shareholder letters was the best investment that he made. I personally, in order to learn about this, I started off reading a book, Investing for Dummies, Elements of Investing, which is kind of similar to the book Elements of Style, which you can read that in like 3 hours and get a really good grasp on it, and F Wall Street, which is really talks about how Buffett values the company and things like that. So now that we have a foundation and educational background, we can look at like the nitty-gritty of how Warren Buffett goes about valuing the company and then making a profit off of that by investing in it. The first thing he wants you to know is that you're not simply buying just a stock. You're buying a piece of a business. You're going to be part owner of this business. So the first thing you want to do is know everything about this business. Let's say it's Coca-Cola. You want to know how they get the revenues. You want to know what their operating expenses are. You want to know where they're going to be 20 years down the line. You want to know and you want to value other intangible assets. So once we have selected our company, we go about valuing, which I'm not going to get into because that would take a very long time. And you look at the past financial records, you do equations, and you try to come to a value of the company. So let's say we value Johnson & Johnson at $500 billion. We divide that number by the amount of stocks, their market capitalization, and we get their share price. So let's say we got Johnson & Johnson, we valued it at $120 a share. So I'm going to explain this better by using this Johnson & Johnson example. This is a graph of Johnson & Johnson's share prices for the past 5 years. I want to specifically look at that dip right there that happens around February. I was looking at Johnson & Johnson, I evaluated them at about $120 per share. For some reason, the day traders, this is what you want to happen. You want the day traders to, for whatever reason, they're day trading, the price goes up and down, but it just took a huge dip. And I say that that company's worth $120. You can see what happens after that. So that's just a basis of value investing. Now I want to talk about the psychological aspect about it, because that's a whole nother ballgame. And in order to give yourself confidence when investing, Warren Buffett says the most important concept is a margin of safety, which is a percentage, is a number that you think of when you find a company and you're evaluating it. Let's say you don't understand it that well, you want to give yourself a higher margin of safety to minimize risk and unforeseen consequences. So let me just explain this graph. It's actually a really good graph. The red line is the intrinsic value, which is the number that I made myself. So let's say $120 for Johnson & Johnson. And the black line is the price of the shares trading on the market day to day. As you can see, the lines are never really the same. They only line up together twice. Your margin of safety, let's say it's 25%, that would mean that's the faded line, so that means my $120 for Johnson & Johnson is now $90. It was at 85, so during that little red spot there, we want to buy. We don't just want to buy one stock, one share, or two shares. We want to buy as much as possible. So that's the way to boost your confidence when investing and give you more reinforcement. This is just a good quote by Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is very quotable, and he has great metaphors to describe his concepts. The last thing you want to do, a good investor, is a good quote by Buffett, who, as he says, price is what you pay for, value is what you get. The last thing you want to do is you see your money going down and then you sell. That's the last thing you want to do. Don't pay attention to the market forecasts. Don't look at anything like that. Just trust in the system and trust in Warren Buffett's advice. So, in conclusion, today there's a wealth of information. You can read books. I like to read books. You could go on the internet, you could watch videos on Warren Buffett, etc. in order to knowledge yourself. Then pick a company that you're interested in. Learn about it, learn the ins and outs of it, evaluate it yourself, and then follow the market and wait for that magic number and then buy. And if you're lucky enough, if you start now and you find some good companies like that Johnson & Johnson example, and you live as long as Warren Buffett, like 86 years old, you'll end up being pretty rich. And finally, this quote, in my opinion, is the essence of Warren Buffett's teachings. Thank you very much.